The moment she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You can't control me," I knew our marriage was over. From the beginning, I made sure my wife had everything she could ever need. I wasn't some young guy struggling to get on his feet. I was a successful businessman, well established, and 12 years older than her. Life had already been a journey by the time I met her. I had lost my first wife during childbirth, and for a long time after that, work became my refuge. That hard work paid off. By the time I remarried, I was wealthy enough to provide a life most people could only dream of. When we got married, she made it clear that she didn't want a career. She wanted to be a stay-at-home wife, and I had no problem with that. Why would I? I made more than enough money for the both of us. There was no need for her to stress about jobs or bills. She had the luxury of waking up every day with no expectations other than to enjoy life. Years later, when I finally allowed myself to love again, I met my current wife. She was young, beautiful, and full of energy, exactly what my life had been missing. She brought warmth back into my world, which had felt cold and mechanical for years. I wanted her to be happy, to feel secure, and I made sure she had everything she could ever want. Luxury vacations? Done. Shopping whenever she felt like it? Absolutely. Outings with her friends? I never said no. If she wanted something, it was hers. I believed that taking care of her meant more than just paying the bills. It meant giving her a life where she never had to feel deprived or neglected. I gave her everything. In return, I expected loyalty. I didn't say it out loud, but we both knew that was the deal. I provided, and she remained committed to me. It wasn't a written contract, but it was understood. I never believed there was any reason for doubt. After all, what else could she possibly want? But over time, something shifted. It was subtle at first, small things I brushed off as nothing. But looking back, those small changes were the warning signs I chose to ignore. As time passed, I noticed a shift in my wife's attitude. She became restless. It started with small complaints, passing comments about being bored or feeling stuck. She had all the freedom in the world. No deadlines, no job stress, no financial worries. Yet, something about her life didn't seem enough for her anymore. I figured it was just a phase. Everyone feels like that sometimes, right? You go through moments where things feel repetitive, and then you shake it off and move on. But for her, it didn't pass. The complaints became more frequent. She started saying she needed something to do. I listened, trying to be supportive. I offered ideas. Maybe she could start a small business, something she could enjoy at her own pace. Or she could take up a new hobby, something creative or fulfilling. If she wanted, she could even get involved in charity work, helping people in need. She had time, resources, and zero pressure. But she dismissed all of it. Then, one evening, she finally came to me with an idea of her own. "I'm thinking about joining a gym class," she said. "I just want to stay active, get out of the house a little." It was the first real plan she had brought up, so I didn't see any reason to object. It made sense. Staying fit was important, and if it made her feel better, then why not? In fact, I encouraged it. I was relieved she had found something to do, especially with my work schedule keeping me busy. There were weeks when I had to travel for business, and I figured having a routine like that would keep her occupied. At the time, I thought it was a good thing. I thought it would help her. I had no idea it would be the beginning of everything falling apart. For over a month, the gym was just another part of her routine. She went almost every morning and came back later in the day, sometimes a little tired, but always in a good mood. I never thought much about it. If anything, I was glad she had found something to occupy her time. Then one evening, while we were having dinner, I asked a simple question, one I hadn't thought about before. "How's the gym going?" I wasn't expecting anything unusual. Maybe she would talk about a new workout she tried or complain about how sore her muscles were. But instead, she barely looked up from her plate and said, "Oh, I don't go to the gym anymore." I blinked. That was news to me. "What do you mean?" She waved her hand dismissively, as if it wasn't a big deal. "I found out they have dance classes there, so I switched to that instead." She said it so casually, like it was the most normal thing in the world. There was no prior discussion, no mention of it before. Just a sudden switch from lifting weights to dancing. She didn't stop there. As she kept talking, I noticed something different. The way she lit up. She spoke with excitement, more energy than I had seen in a long time. She went on about how fun it was, how she loved the music, the movements, the feeling of letting loose. She said dancing made her feel free, like she could just forget everything and enjoy the moment. At first, I saw no harm in it. If it made her happy, then what was the problem? People change their interests all the time. A dance class was just another form of exercise, right? But looking back, that moment should have been my first warning. The way she spoke about it. The way she smiled to herself. The way she never even mentioned the gym again. It wasn't just a class. It was something more. I just didn't realize it yet. Taking my annual leave was supposed to be a time for me to relax and spend more time with my wife. I had been working hard for years, constantly traveling for business, and I figured this was the perfect chance to enjoy some time at home with her. But being at home full-time made me notice things I had never paid attention to before. Every morning, my wife left for her dance class. That was normal. What wasn't normal was the fact that she hardly ever came home until it was dark. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was just enjoying herself, spending time socializing after class. But as the days passed, I started to feel like something wasn't right. Before, I was too busy to notice. My work schedule had always kept me occupied, and my frequent travels meant I wasn't around to question her routine. But now, with all the time in the world to observe, it became suspicious. One evening, while we were spending time together, I decided to bring it up. I didn't accuse her of anything. I just made a joke, hoping to see how she'd react. Is this how dance classes work? You leave early and spend the whole day there. She smiled, too easily, as if my question didn't bother her at all. Without missing a beat, she began listing her reasons, one after another. Sometimes I take extra classes. Other times I meet up with friends after practice. I run errands before heading home. You know how it is, I just lose track of time. Excuse after excuse, all delivered without hesitation. I didn't buy it. Her behavior was too suspicious, and I knew I had to find out what was really going on. So the next morning, after she left for her so-called dance class, I grabbed my car keys and decided to follow her. I made sure to keep my distance, staying several cars behind as she drove to the gym. When she pulled into the parking lot, I found a spot across the street where I could watch without being seen. I turned off the engine and sat there, waiting, observing. She stepped out of the car, dressed in her usual gym attire, and walked inside. Everything looked perfectly normal. She greeted a few people at the entrance, exchanged pleasantries, and smiled like everything was fine. There was one man in particular. He was younger, well-built, and carried himself with a confidence that stood out. He wasn't just another dancer. From the moment my wife saw him, her entire demeanor changed. I watched as they talked, too closely. He touched her arm lightly, and she didn't pull away. Then, the dance practice began. I came down from the car to have a better view. And that's when I saw it. The way he placed his hands on her waist. The way she leaned into him without hesitation. The way she smiled up at him, completely absorbed in the moment. This wasn't just dance. I felt my stomach tighten as I watched my wife flush, giggle, and melt into his arms with an energy I hadn't seen in years. There was an ease between them, a connection that didn't belong to a married woman. I took my phone out, snapping a few photos. Still, I wasn't ready to leave just yet. I wanted to know exactly how far this went. The dance session lasted 4 hours. I asked someone nearby how long classes typically lasted, and they confirmed 4 hours was the longest session offered. Fine. So, why didn't she come home after? I remained in my hidden spot, waiting, watching. Once practice was over, I saw her walk out with him, still chatting, still laughing, still completely comfortable in his presence. And then, instead of heading to her car alone, he followed her. She unlocked the doors, and he jumped into the passenger's seat without hesitation. Then they drove off together. I sat there, feeling something inside me shift. I drove home, telling myself maybe she would come back early this time. But no. She came home late, just like always, walking in as if nothing had happened. And in that moment I knew. She wasn't just going to dance class. She was building a life outside of our marriage. That evening, when she walked through the door, I didn't waste a second. I had spent the entire day replaying what I had seen, thinking through every possible explanation. But no matter how I framed it, the truth was clear. She was too close to that man, and whatever was happening between them wasn't just about dancing. I sat in the living room waiting. The moment she stepped inside, I spoke. "Who is he?" My voice was calm, steady, but firm. She stopped mid-step, frowning as if she had no idea what I was talking about. "Who?" she asked, tilting her head slightly, playing dumb. I didn't bother with small talk. I pulled out my phone and held it up, the screen glowing with the photos I had taken earlier. Clear images of her and that man at the dance studio, laughing, standing close, his hands on her waist as they danced like lovers. "This guy," I said, keeping my eyes locked on hers. "The one you seem so comfortable with." For a split second, something flickered in her expression. Shock, hesitation, maybe even guilt. But it disappeared just as quickly. Instead, she crossed her arms over her chest and rolled her eyes, her stance shifting from surprise to defense. "Are you seriously spying on me now?" she snapped, her voice laced with irritation. "You're being ridiculous." Her dismissive tone only made my anger rise. She didn't even deny it. No reassurance. No attempt to explain why she had been with him for hours after the dance session ended. Instead, she was trying to turn the situation on me, as if I was the problem for following her, not her for what she had been doing. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to let her twist the truth. I took a deep breath and kept my voice level. "If you want this marriage to continue, you have to stop the dance classes." Immediately, she stared at me, her face unreadable. Then, slowly, she smirked. She stepped closer, looked me straight in the eyes, and said 4 words that made my blood run cold. "You don't control me." Then, without another word, she turned on her heel and walked away, leaving me standing there. At that moment, I realized something. This wasn't just about the dance. This was about us. And maybe there was nothing left to save. The next morning, as she got ready to leave, I sat at the dining table, drinking my coffee and watching her. She moved with the same carelessness as always, acting as if last night's conversation had never happened. I let her go through her usual routine, waiting until she was just about to step out the door before I spoke. "If you go to that class today, don't bother coming back." My voice was steady and clear, no anger, no pleading, just a simple statement of fact. She paused for a second, her hand on the doorknob. Then, without so much as a glance in my direction, she pushed the door open and walked out. No hesitation, no second thought. That was it. The moment the door shut behind her, I picked up my phone and started making the calls. First, the locksmith. By the end of the day, she wouldn't be able to walk back into this house like nothing had happened. Then, my account manager. The credit card she used, the one tied to my bank account, frozen. No more luxury on my dime. Finally, my lawyer. I wanted the divorce process started immediately. She had signed a prenup before we got married. If we didn't reach 10 years, she walked away with nothing. We were just shy of that mark. I was done playing the fool. That evening, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing, call after call, message after message. At first, the texts were angry. She called me petty, insecure, and controlling. She accused me of being jealous and paranoid, as if this was all just some childish reaction. But when I didn't respond, her tone changed. The insults turned into confusion, then desperation. "Let's talk. Please just answer me. I don't understand why you're doing this." She had finally come home, to find herself locked out and penniless. She tried calling again, her name flashing on my screen over and over. I let it ring. I didn't pick up. For the first time, she was feeling the consequences of her actions. My lawyer had assured me that the divorce papers would be ready within the week. If she wanted to fight, I was more than ready. But if she had any sense left, she'd sign them and walk away quietly. Either way, she was no longer my problem. I had given her everything, a life of comfort, security, and love. And still, she chose to betray me. The signs had been there, but I wanted to believe it was just my imagination. I needed undeniable proof, so I hired a private investigator. It didn't take long for him to confirm what I already knew deep down. She had been having an affair with that young guy from the dance class. He showed me evidence that left no room for doubt. She had never just been dancing. When she realized she could no longer access the house, she didn't wander the streets or reach out to family. No, she went straight to his place. That told me everything I needed to know about where her heart had been all along. She had made her choice, and now she was living with the consequences. She thought she could walk all over me, disrespect our marriage, and still come home to the life I built for her. But she learned the hard way. Every action has a price. So, what do you think? If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Would you have given her another chance? Or would you have walked away like I did? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this.